Morning. It's morning for me, but good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness and the highest levels of love light. I wanted to sit outside and just connect with the wind and Mother Earth Gaia. So I'm just gonna do a little light language and message from my higher guidance team. Kue wahena makua hai. Ua ti kunua te wa o kue hene. Mokue te o sta makue haya. Kuna e te kunua hai e ti kune. Ne mokue ti ni wahe a mokune wahena. We are contained, so to speak, within this vessel, within this human body, if you will, this human vessel that moves through experiences for the body, the skin suit, also experiences through feeling and its own version of perception. Tuehe makueana. Iaua tukua we tini mohaena. And as we suit up, so to speak, as we allow ourselves to zip into, so I'm seeing this as a zip drive, holding all kinds of information. I've got rain coming, I think. I'm gonna have to probably move inside. It's ironic. Yet the earth too is in her own form. It is encased within a place in space, if you will, and within her form holds much. Yet within your own physical form, you too hold all of the key elements that Mother Earth holds. And as the earth holds you, the skin, the muscles, the bone, the tissue holds you. And what is it that it holds? What is this space that we speak of that is within and without? And while science may call it a plasmatic field of energy, electricity and charge, so to speak, that would be true. Yet it is so much more than that. There is much more than meets the eyes. There is much more than, when I say meets the eyes, I'm seeing like more than what we see and more than what we see out of and what we see through the eyes. And now is the time, in no time, to realize that what we are seeing is changing. What we are encased, so to speak, poured into within is shifting. The architecture in which the original foundation of the body, the suit, was built, created, if you will, as a living, breathing, tubular tube connected to life, if you will, is changing. And as your technological skin suit changes and morphs and evolves, so too does the Earth's. This requires some stretching, balancing, breathing in and out, in and out. It involves growing and shrinking and shaking and moving. I'm being guided to kind of stop and just talk about some of the things that people feel as we're going through this shift. It feels sometimes as if our body is cracking and creaking and things break down and then all of a sudden they're fine. And what I'm being guided to share is this is part of the process. The earth does not become afraid, so to speak, when one of her parts, I'm seeing a volcano, decides to expel, to express, to assist her in her movement. For that is part of the package, if you will. And you have all agreed to a package deal, so to speak. You are in this body, here on this planet, in this time in which we call now. We invite you to sit back and relax. Let go of the need to dissect and to stop certain phases of development from expanding, if you will. We invite you to step out of the place of fear for what we see going on around and on Mother Earth is not all because of a fear-based, indoctrinated society. It is not all because of the man-made, harmful collaborations that have been what many are calling inflicted upon Mother Earth. This is not the full story. This is not the full truth. While this is true in many components and for many different reasons, it is not the full truth. For Earth is changing, and in order to change, in order to make room, if you will, to spread out, there must be a shift in everything. There are more elementals that have yet to be discovered, for she is in the process of producing them. And there are many elementals that have already been produced that are still in the process of being discovered. They sit waiting in this alchemical pie, so to speak, growing and connecting with all of the other attributes that Mother Earth connects through. I'm seeing reference to elementals. I'm seeing reference to animals. I'm seeing reference to the periodic table of elements. I'm seeing reference to crystals and rocks. For if we think of Earth as a living being, we recognize that her rocks or the crust is the skeletal system from one perspective. We recognize that all of the heat and the magma within the body, we recognize that the oil as the craniosacral fluid is part of this habit, like where we live. It's like what she wears. Just as we have craniosacral fluid that goes and connects and sends and lubricates, right, and communicates, Earth has that as well. And you are a piece of that. So just as the cells in the body are intricate, that's not the right word, but that's part of it, necessary, are intrinsic in order for the functionality of the body as a whole component, so too are all the pieces and parts of Mother Earth. And yes, if you pollute your body, your waters, your fluids in your body with pollutants, it will affect the entire organism. Yet the entire organism works together and evolves in order to overcome, to work through, and I'm hearing overcompensate, and that's a play on words, to balance out the pollutants that we all put into our skin suit, our ecosystem, if you will, our biology, our ecology, right? Our ecosystem. And we are constantly putting pollutants in, knowingly or unknowingly. And these are then processed, and our body then evolves in order to better suit what it is that we are directing our body to do. For we are the conscious inhibitors I'm seeing on also the inhabitants of our body. We are also the conscious inhabitants of Earth's body. And if we think of ourselves as the intrinsic cells that are encased within Earth, for this air and ether and plasma and elements that we are breathing in and out of right now exists in Earth. For we are within, encased below the clouds, above the ground. I'm hearing most of us. Mingling with the waters. So therefore, we are an intrinsic extension of the functionality as cells, as souls, encased within our own cellular makeup of Mother Earth. If we think of an ecosystem and we recognize that when one animal or group of elementals is flailing, we recognize that it encompasses and impacts that entire ecosystem. Therefore, when we have certain cells within our body that are not operating as a whole unit, they are separating themselves and fighting themselves, so to speak, in order to function better. There's a sense of separation and disconnect. And when this happens, the entire organism as a whole does not communicate, does not create the intersensory fascia. I'm seeing all this plays on words now. I'm making a connection. I was writing about fashionable and fascia. I'm seeing a reference to like lightning. When it hits the ground, it carries information and it charges the earth. I'm just seeing us, literally, I'm being shown the cells being separated, like disease, right? Everything kind of attacks that disease so that it separates it from the body so that it can't spread out. But from another perspective, sometimes the body welcomes it and then digests it and breaks it down in order to absorb it, so to speak, or to transmute it, is what I'm hearing. We invite you to use the body and Mother Earth interchangeably, for we are all intrinsically combined, and we are the combination locks, if you will, that are keying in the frequencies, not only into our own body. And I'm being shown mycelium and mushrooms. If you ever look up the beautiful world of mycelium and mushrooms, and literally the fibers that are underneath, it's the web. It's the true light web, right? Not technology. It's the web of all of these networks that are in everything that is under the ground. But that's our fascia in our body. It is connected to everything. And if we're not hydrating it and we're not cognizant of what we're doing with our bodies, our skin suits, our technology, it blocks the ability for it to, I'm hearing, work at its optimal potential and harness its higher capabilities. And it increases, what I'm hearing is it increases the impact zone. This is a play on words. And all that comes in is a bigger impact. And I'm seeing how everything intrinsically works together in order to keep things stabilized. While we say this, we must recognize that fear is a destabilizer. If we have a group of, let's say, mycelium or mushrooms, for example, that are all in fear of one another, for example, they would not communicate. They would not intrinsically work together. They would separate and then die off, for their connections would not be able to spark this intelligent communication, and it would lose its spark, is what I'm hearing. And this is how many systems die off, Yet oftentimes these die-offs, just as we shed off the old cells on the outside of the skin, so to speak. I'm seeing 7 years, 7 cells, like every 7 years, there's that cyclical pattern where you're just a new body. All this stuff has been shed and we don't realize it, but everything is fresh from one perspective. May not feel that way all the time, right? As these cells, I'm seeing us as the nautilus shell, but anyways, as the cells shed, then the new growth is able to stem up and be rebirthed, so to speak. So much of what we are seeing is a natural process that Earth goes through from time to time. Of course, we choose not we don't want to fail to mention that just as we want to feed our bodies the appropriate nutrients to keep it working at its optimum potential, so too does the earth wish to be fed the proper nutrients and not be continually polluted with false systems. These false systems can be all forms and non-forms. They can be through sound, they can be through electronics. Anything artificial may be what we refer to as false. Plastic, chemicals, and even though one might say, well, chemicals are part of the Earth's components, for she is a chemical compound, and while that would be true, many of the chemicals that have been harnessed are now inorganic, for they have become man-made. And while man is an organic substance, being, frequency, the tools that man uses or that man has created are not always organically charged. Many of them are not finite, or are finite. They're not infinite. They have a coldness and what I'm seeing is, let's say, for example, sometimes you put a metal in the body and the body will work around it, but there's always going to be some form of impact that metal is going to have in the body. It's not like the tissue necessarily can meld with the metal. Although metal isn't the best example because metal is an earth element. However, the earth has ways of breaking that metal down and building it up as a constant state of balance and harmony. We choose to take this into another level, for as you think of yourself as the cells, perhaps within Earth, that are here to assist and stabilize and balance out Mother Earth, for you have agreed to create a relationship, if you will, with Mother Earth. Of course, many are not upholding this agreement, and there are many who are doing what they can in order to balance out the flailing, those that are unaware, those that are disconnected. And we call this a separation anxiety. For as you separate from the true components of Earth's tools, and you continue to move into man-made tools, there becomes a disconnect, not only between the body, the soul, and Mother Earth, although the soul can never truly be disconnected, but it will affect the growth potential of the soul in many cases. This space that is pulling apart creates a sense of anxiousness and anxiety. For if you are living on a planet, in order to truly, a living planet, create and establish a relationship the two have agreed upon, there must be a connection. However, if we separate ourselves from one another, so to speak, there becomes this lessening ability to balance out what it is we have the potential of balancing out within ourselves and within Mother Earth. For just as the fascia within your body cannot truly be disconnected from itself, from the skin, it like wraps around everything. You could think of an organ. An organ could be removed from the body. And the body, many times, depending on the organ, will work through that, will work around it, will evolve in order to support the new body. However, there will always be a component that is not truly, I'm seeing like a missing element. So there will have to be checks and balances. And it's the same thing with Mother Earth. We may have fascia that is never disconnected, yet if we do not feed it water and move it, it will become hard, cracked, and brittle, so to speak. And when something is hard, cracked, and brittle, just as when there is a place that is in drought, such as a desert, the water cannot be absorbed. It instead turns into what one might call a flash flood. It is not able to be integrated in the same way. I only have a few more minutes because my phone runs out at half hour, so I'll try to get this all in. So it is highly encouraged that the proper water and clean, pure water is taken within, and frequently, for we are all in this space of water. And it is a key component in our own adaptability, in our own abilities to adapt to the outside man-made influences that are bombarding us at this time. And while we are not in this particular message going to address how we are going to solve or find a solution, or shall we say proper balancing technique to not only harness these energies, but to clear out the ones that are causing a frequency overload, so to speak. And we speak of the inorganic frequencies, not the organic frequencies. For within the organic frequencies contains the ability to neutralize the inorganic ones. For we are walking and talking technological resources, as is the earth. Many of you have heard of the Schumann resonance. This resonance, if you will, this sound frequency of vibration is a charge, is a representation of the charge that the earth is holding. And when the earth is in its optimal state of being, the charge rises, and we intrinsically communicate with it, and we feed it as she feeds us. Literally is what I'm saying. This has been forgotten by many, and we are here to remind many how important it is to reconnect these roots, to reconnect these shoots that are growing out and seeking for, I'm seeing antennae. Like a lot of us are growing out these extrasensory abilities, and we're being, what I'm hearing is bamboozled, or that cord, those antennae are being pulled towards these inorganic frequencies because they hold so much incoherent charge, and it kind of like fries out our system. But in order to balance that out, we have to remember to charge with what it is that we are supposed to charge with, which is Mother Earth as our charging station, if you will. We also choose to move into another conversation with this, which I'll have to record in video too, and I'll do that on a separate video. So I'm going to end on just this earth-body connection. The earth is creating from her resources, which you, and I'm speaking by the way of all of us, may not even recognize or realize. Like there's so many resources that we aren't even utilizing because we've focused on these chemical compounds as being band-aids for, or cures for dis-ease that beings on earth are not even aware of what the cause is in the first place. Many of the cause of the diseases that man is seeking to cure is the disconnect from earth. This separation anxiety has created anxiety within the body. This becomes a fractionated system in which the fractal, the unified field in which we all exist in, is ignored, is not seen, is not felt. And this creates an innate feeling of loss. It is more of a lost charge, so to speak. For we lose our steam when we do not know what it is that we are charging forward for. We do not recognize what it is that we are supposed to charge into, and many of us do not realize what we are really in charge of. It is not that we are in charge necessarily as wardens and wards of, I'm hearing wardesses, of Mother Earth, although that would be one description that would be fitting. Ooh, here comes the rain.